Bernardo Campos is the father of one of the 43 students who went missing in southern Mexico in September. The farmer takes us around his land near the city of Chilpancingo. He proudly shows us his only head of cattle, which he's fattening up to sell. Then the conversation turns to his son. He tells us his boy, Jose Angel Campos, wanted to study, even though he's older and married. He wants to make something of his life, says Bernardo, switching to present tense because in his mind his son is still alive. He asks God that Jose turns up any moment with his fellow students. The only picture that Bernardo shows us of his son is the missing person poster. Jose was 33 years old when he disappeared, leaving behind a wife and 2 children. The family now lives in Bernardo's house. The mood is heavy, and they speak almost in whispers. They don't know when Jose will return, if he will return. Bernardo distracts himself from that thought by looking after his 4-month-old granddaughter. The farmer searches every day for hints of his son's whereabouts, leaving his field unattended. He travels to the teacher's college in Ayotzinapa looking for information. The college where his son returned to study at the age of 33, hoping to secure a better future. Now the basketball court has been turned into a memorial of sorts. The students all attended this college, and each has been devoted a chair. Their abduction has been blamed on criminal collusion between the town mayor, the police, and a drug cartel. Bernardo says the students were no criminals. They weren't kidnappers or drug addicts. He says the real bad guys have to be put behind bars. But the government is doing nothing because it's in league with them. We're poor, says Bernardo. They do what they want with us because we're poor and powerless. The teacher training college in Ayotzinapa is known for its leftist activism. The students campaign for the poor and help organize grassroots movements. At the end of September, a group of students were traveling through the town of Iguala when the local police attacked them. The group was apparently driving stolen buses. 2.5 months later, Jose Adolfo is still shaken by what happened. The local and state police attacked us, Jose says. They shot into the crowd. 2 of my classmates were hit and killed instantly. Another had a part of his mouth shot off. And a 4th lost 2 fingers. Jose says he ran away as fast as he could. He could still hear the shots 2 blocks away. It was awful. Over 400 students are enrolled in the Rural Teachers College. After the 26th of September, over a 10th of them failed to return. Classes have now been suspended. 19-year-old Jose is convinced the government wants to shut down the college. He points out that the sign at the entrance reads, "Welcome to Ayotzinapa, the cradle of social consciousness." That's what we do here, he says. We highlight the problems in Mexico, and the government doesn't like it. Since the abduction of the students, the college in Ayotzinapa has been receiving support from all corners of the world. A UN representative visited the families and called on the Mexican government to do more to protect human rights. The human rights activist Abel Barrera complains that the situation in his country is dire.
El que comete
Nobody who violates human rights gets punished, Abel says. On the contrary, they're protected. The combination of corruption, which is very anchored in the system, together with the authorities who abuse human rights and remain in office, ensure that our society finds itself in a very difficult situation, he tells us.
Es algo que realmente ha agraviado profundamente a la sociedad.
The violence of the drug cartels doesn't just affect the poor. We travel to Chilapa, 30 kilometers further inland. The army is supposed to provide security here, but several days ago 16 bodies turned up, charred and mutilated. 5 of them had no known connections to the drug cartels. They were here to plan a school construction project. Their families say the police have made little effort to investigate the crime. Jose Diaz Navarro, the brother of 2 of the victims, handed the GPS data from their car over to the authorities when they went missing. He says that information could have helped save their lives or at least capture their killers. We still haven't received a response, he says. The events were 8 days ago, and nobody has contacted us. No official has paid us a visit. We're running after them. And when I call, they don't even answer anymore. Religion provides some solace for the relatives. But then something happens in Chilapa that even they weren't expecting. The violence, the fear, the massacres. Many citizens have had enough. They take to the streets in protest. This man tells us it's a problem that's always with us. We live in terror. And the worst, he says, is that we're used to living in terror. The citizens are demanding security. It's a rebellion against the drug clans who have taken over the city. Jose Diaz Navarro is determined. The people are fed up, he says. We've decided to overcome our fear and break the silence so the authorities finally do something. That's what we're risking our lives for. The older generation longed for the peaceful Chilapa that existed before the clans moved in. In Chilapa, Ayotzinapa, Mexico City, the discontent is simmering. Mexicans are no longer paralyzed by fear. People are starting to stand up to the drug gangs and corrupt politicians, and it could mark the beginning of a social revolution. In Tixtla, a town with 70,000 inhabitants between Chilapa and Ayotzinapa, residents decided 2 years ago to take matters into their own hands. Tired of waiting for a better future and feeling the police could offer no protection, they established their own community security force. Armed and masked, they patrol the streets to keep Tixtla's residents safe. Tori tells us how it was to live in the town several years ago. There were moments, she says, when fear ruled. Suddenly, the luxury vehicles arrived, carrying armed men, and everyone looked the other way, out of fear, of course. There were times when we were prisoners in our own homes or neighborhoods, and that's why people started organizing themselves. The vigilante force makes arrests and locks offenders up in makeshift cells, like these youths. The alleged cattle thieves will now be paraded through the town, an action designed to both teach them a lesson and serve as a warning to others. "200 citizens are part of the security force, all of them volunteers. The town's residents think it's a positive thing. It's good for the people's safety, this man tells us. We ask about the local police. He says the vigilantes do that job. When the police do nothing, the vigilantes step in. Although the vigilantes operate outside the law, the official police leave them unchallenged. That could be down to the fact that they now carry serious weapons, the kind of arms normally used by soldiers, but which the vigilantes say they seized in clashes with the police. Tori tells us that they secured the weapons. They're not ours, she says, and as we've often pointed out, some come from Germany. Like the Heckler and Koch guns, he says, which NATO officially bans in Mexican states like Guerrero, Chiapas, or Michoacán. But they were here, and the police carried them. We ask ourselves about the role of the international community in the spiraling violence in Mexico. The vigilantes continue their patrol. The friends and families of the abducted students hope their campaign will lead to international pressure on the Mexican government. They've taken their protest to Mexico City. There, we spot Bernardo Campos in the crowd. Thousands of demonstrators march through the capital, demanding the government bring back the students alive. Bernardo, like all the others, knows it's increasingly unlikely he will ever see his son again. But he wants to make his voice heard. On this evening comes the news they have all been dreading. It's confirmed the remains of one of the students have been positively identified.